Okay.
Where are you at? What time zone are you in?
I'm in Eastern Time Zone. I'm in Toronto,
Oh,
Canada.
same, same. Okay.
And where are you?
I'm in Richmond, Virginia.
Okay, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm a notorious early riser, so doing this at this time of day works for me.
That's great. I am not. So
Oh my goodness.
I'm happy to be here, but I've definitely made it work.
Then we will send you all the energy that we got. Okay.
I
I'm
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 feeling it.
sending
I
it
love it.
your way. Let's go. Three, two, and one.
Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stephenson, the Odd Man.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, where our ongoing goals to inspire you to live your best audacious life ever. I'm thrilled to be here with you, sharing insights and engaging conversations that can empower you to embrace your boldest self. I truly appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us, and I hope you find value in every episode. Now, today we have the pleasure of speaking with MegAnne Ford. She's a seasoned parenting coach dedicated to transforming the way parents engage with their children. With over 22 years of experience in early childhood education and family dynamics, MegAnne has developed a unique perspective on parenting that emphasizes the importance of attachment theory and emotional safety. Her work empowers parents to shed compliance-based tools in favor of connection-driven strategies that foster healthier relationships within the family dynamic. Think of parenting as a dance. In a well-choreographed dance, there's a beautiful flow between partners where each movement is in sync and responsive to the other's cues. Just like in dance, parenting should be about connection, not compliance. Instead of forcing a child to follow rigid steps, it's about gracefully guiding them, adapting to the rhythm, and nurturing a relationship where both partners feel valued and understood. MegAnne's approach emphasizes that when we prioritize connection, we create a harmonious relationship that allows our children to flourish. MegAnne's expertise aligns perfectly with our discussion today, focusing on the concept of parenting as a relationship built on connection rather than authority. Her insights into the clear method offer actionable steps for parents seeking to enhance their interactions with their children. So now that we've got you all set and ready to go, let's turn to our conversation with MegAnne. Enjoy. Good day, MegAnne. Thank you for joining me here on the
Good morning.
Audacious Living Podcast. I appreciate you making the time to be here.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be here. I'm excited. I already feel the love and energy coming from you, and
Oh,
I know that through this conversation, more will come as well.
well, thank you. And this generally is really is a labor of love. It's a passion of mine that I enjoy the opportunity to share and engage in dialogue with individuals. I oftentimes will talk about how fascinating it is that you and I will be engaged in a conversation, and others have the opportunity to eavesdrop, and they potentially can
Mhm.
take something from what we've said in their own lives to make their lives even
Mhm.
better. And so that's the real cool part for me. So thank you for helping me sort of fulfill my own personal mission. You come to us today as a parenting coach, and you assist parents in the upbringing and raising of their children, and through coaching and strategies, and obviously lessons that you've learned or come across as
Mhm.
well. So maybe as a starting point, I can get you to maybe expand a bit further on the work you do,
Mhm.
and maybe kind of what's got you to the point that you're at now.
Yeah. Even hearing the word parenting coach, it feels so sterile. And it
Okay.
feels like no, I mean you're right on. That's what the label is, right? But when I'm hearing it back, I'm like, yeah, but that's not really what I do. I mean, that is what I do, but like really what it is. So I love the opportunity to expand more. So yeah, I help meet parents who love their kids and love being a parent and are in the trenches of some pretty big behavioral struggles. So they've been doing everything right. They've been following all their friends' advice. They've been doing even what was done to them and are
Right.
still ending up in struggles and strife and feeling heavy and guilt and start to feel like a bad parent. And they start to withdraw from a lot of spaces, like public spaces or their friends. And somehow I call them in and they come, they feel like a moth to the flame. They
Hmm.
come and they find respite, they find connection, they find understanding that parenting is a relationship and that relationship is best built on connection and not
Hmm.
compliance.
Hmm.
And that's what we do is we help shed the compliance-based tools that was just their children were interpreting them as invitations to power struggles and their kids have we talk about energy
Let's
kids have
fight.
yeah, they're like, great, I'm there early. And I can withstand a lot more.
Right.
Um, and we I just teach them how to diffuse those situations and suddenly the strife that they felt, they're like, wow, you know what? I haven't yelled in 3 weeks. And
Mm,
I actually caught myself in morning transition really enjoying myself. And like that feels amazing, but like
right.
kind of weird, and um they start to say things like, I didn't even know that this is what parenting was.
Mm,
Now I
mm,
see what it was. I
gotcha.
was misled before, and now I see what it is, and it feels so much better. And yeah, so how did I get here? I got here from 14 years working with early childhood
Okay.
and making many mistakes myself in those trenches of power struggles and learning, oh, when I focus on the relationship and making it safe for me and making it safe for them,
Yeah.
it's a win for everyone.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I've been doing that for now the past 8 years. So that brings me up to 22 years of working with children and their families.
Mm,
And yeah, it's my favorite thing. It's the biggest impact that that I feel makes in my community and the ripples out. Like that's how I'm impacting the world.
right. Right. I've got to say, I've never heard it reference parenting as a relationship before. So that's a
Mhm.
new learning for me.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
it's one that I can see easily how that can reframe everything for individuals
Yeah.
because when you focus on a relationship, there's key aspects, right? We all know that we want to
Yes.
build a relationship. There's key things that we do,
Yes.
and maybe it's because even how you're raised, maybe
Yes.
culturally how you're raised. It's not a relationship.
Yes.
It's you do as I say, and that's it. And then
Yeah.
if you got something to say, then the gloves are off. And I mean that kind of, and so
Hmm.
to hear it described as that, I'd like it to kind of get deeper in that if you don't mind.
Of
Is that a
course.
yeah? Is that when was that developed? How was it developed? Is it a new thing? Like I'd love to know.
Yeah, I think outside of the space of early childhood or outside of the space of psychology, kind of like in a more traditional mindset, it's not thought of as a relationship.
Hmm.
It's thought in the lens of what's called childism, and it's childism meaning when we think about the power dynamics of the adult has power over the child. And so, in the lens of attachment theory and in psychology and in maybe a more trauma-informed practice in early childhood education and development, anything that you go into kind of the study of adult and child, you start to understand that power dynamic. You can start to deconstruct it and you start to see, oh, this is a relationship. I'm actually teaching them through modeling, through the experience of being in an energy exchange with another human.
Right.
And so they're learning how to go through anger by witnessing and experiencing anger. And the question then is like, how? How do we do that? Right?
Mm.
And like you said, for many of us, we have inherited blindly what was
Yeah.
done to us, what was given to us, what we've experienced.
Right.
It just kind of permeates in. And then we start going on autopilot in our relationships, right? That's
That's right.
it's like just once you can see it, it's everywhere.
Hmm.
And you
Hmm.
and really slowing down to deconstruct that, to start to make those tiny changes, just even one to say like, oh, moving from compliance to connection. Let me
Right.
connect to them. Let me meet their not just their structural needs, right? The clothes, the housing, I can provide for everything, but really starting to now tend to that emotional need of, oh, now I can be with and develop a sense of belonging with you. That's my dog, if you heard her in the background. And really start to um, model and pass down new tools so they inherit a whole different experience.
And in some cases, you're doing a bit of a transformation. When we talk about a new experience, like you're going from
Truly.
what you thought, what you
Mm-hmm.
believed, what you
Mm-hmm.
understood it to be, to something
Mm-hmm.
entirely different. And I can see where that transformation process could be an interesting one to go down.
It is, it, yes, I've got like 20 things I want to all, they're all fighting to come out of my mouth. So I'm going to slow down. Yeah, transformation, that word transformation is something that I get to witness all of the parents I work
Sure,
with go through, and
sure.
it is beautiful. And the thing about transformation, there's a phrase that I use in my community. We allow the suffering without inflicting the suffering.
Mm,
So we don't stand in the way of or remove it. We allow and witness, like you said, the transformation through it. And part of that is coming to terms with a lot of blind spots or limiting beliefs or
right.
right coming face to face with like your own reflection, that mirror to be like, oh my gosh, like I thought it was this and it was really this and it was right in front of me the whole time. And I'll share a little story to illustrate this point. Um, Years ago, I had a client who came to me with a teenage daughter,
Hmm.
and she came and she said, I have to come with to you. Like, you've got to get my daughter in order, which on step one is I don't work with kids, I work with adults. So
Right.
I'm
Okay.
going to help
And
you.
that's a very important
It's
distinction.
it's a big distinction. Like I don't work with kids, I work with adults on how they interact with their kids. So
Yes.
she's like, my teenage daughter, she's so entitled. So you gotta help her. And I'm like, well, I'm gonna help you help her by helping
Right.
you.
Yes.
And she's like, oh, okay, I don't know how that's gonna work. And I'm like, you just stick with me. So she went on to share what she had been experiencing is that her teenage daughter was playing soccer and lately has been asking her to not come to her games, that she doesn't want her mom to be there, that she's embarrassed by her mom, that she doesn't like she's just doing too much. And so we kind of peel back, tell me more about that. What have you been, what's been going on? And she's like, well, I've been the team mom. I've never missed a game. Like I'll take off of work and travel. I know the coaches, family, I'm very involved. And she said the one phrase that is a very common thread is she doesn't know what I would give to have a parent like I am right now. And I said,
Mm.
tell me about that. And she
Yeah,
said,
there's
when I
something
was,
there.
yes, tell me about that. And so
That,
she said,
see, coaches would love that. Though coaches love that, right? They
uh-huh,
coaches love that kind
yes,
of language, and
yeah, uh-huh,
they say emotion is information. There's definitely emotion in
yes,
that statement.
yes, yeah, right. You're holding on, right?
That's right.
She's making a request and you're she's wrong. I'm holding on. So we go in there and growing up, she played soccer too.
Hmm.
And her mom, she was the youngest or the oldest of many kids. And her mom never went to any of her soccer games. And she would beg her mom, and her mom would always say, no, I have to be home with kids. Like there was something always that was not a priority for the soccer games. And so she grew up thinking, okay, it's the soccer games. So I'll go to all the soccer games. I'll be the best mom. I'll be there with team shirts. I'll always have the snacks. I'll always be there. And here, as a result, is still this kind of like fractured relationship.
Hmm.
When we pulled it back, I said, okay, so if we strip it down, it sounds to me like you were the daughter expressing your hopes, dreams, needs to the parent. And regardless of if she could or couldn't go to the soccer game, you felt unheard by her. You felt disrespected by her. You didn't feel like she considered your point of view, right? Whether it's independent of if she could or couldn't come to the soccer game, you were left with that wound. And here you've now recreated that, where your daughter is now feeling, would she say, disrespected by you,
Right.
unheard by you, unseen by you, and really pulling back. And that was a really big aha moment. She's like, oh my gosh, I've been doing the exact same thing because that skill independent, like it's easy to attach it to this very surface thing like the soccer game, like,
Hmm.
and we get wrapped up into the story of the soccer game, and it's like, oh, okay, in order to be the good mom, we have to go to the soccer game, we have to do all the things right. pulling it back and missing the foundation of that relationship, independent of that. And so really working, she's like, so what do I have to do? Stop going to the soccer games? I'm like, well, I think that we have to have the conversation with your daughter. I think we're
Right.
going to start to introduce the idea of what would it look like for her to be seen, heard, and understood by you? And
Mm,
what would that feel for you to be in the position of doing the work needed for her, your daughter, to feel the sense of being seen, heard, and understood by you?
right.
And
Right.
that's the change. And like that
Yes.
changes. I
That's that
mean, that's a big
transformation you talked
change.
about.
Yeah. But it's sometimes we think transformation is like beautiful, but like a moth or a caterpillar to a butterfly, like becomes unrecognizable.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Truly.
Yeah. No, I get that. I get that. It was interesting when we talk about, parenting, and, there are tons of books, and
Hmm.
I'm sure there's online groups and Facebook
Hmm.
groups and
Hmm.
parenting tips and all that. And it's all about, here's what you do and here's how you do it, kind of a thing. And
Hmm.
what I really find interesting is that, um, we sometimes forget that each child has their own personality and their own
Hmm.
way of doing things, and all children aren't made equal. And
No.
so, this parenting tip is, here's what you do when they do this. If it's not geared to the needs of the child or their wants, it's going to be ineffective.
That's yes, that is like the decentering the adult's perspective that we were talking about earlier. Like you said, if the tools, those scripts, like here's what you say when this, or here's what you do when
Right.
this,
Right.
that's all centered on the adult. Here's how the adult can quickly get through this struggle, right? Here's the quick band-aid, right? And what you were just talking about is decentering the adult and centering the child, right? What does the child need? What is the language they're speaking? What are they communicating? And are we interpreting that correctly for the child's needs to be met? And
Right.
that is it's a 180 switch.
I'm curious about sort of common things that parents come to you with when they talk about the challenges with their children or the
Mhm.
behaviors that they have. What are some of the common ones out there?
Oh, common ones. Refusals. Refusals can look like um school refusals, like not wanting to go to school, not wanting to do homework, um, not wanting to even share about their school day, right? You come home, you're like, oh, I'm so happy to see you. How was your day? And then you get like fine. Or
Mm,
what did you do? Nothing. How was your test? Great. Like these one word, like refusing to engage. Um, I get a lot of sibling conflicts,
sure.
right? Sibling fighting, parents saying, oh, they're just so nasty to each other. I don't want them to grow up and have the relationship that I had with my
It goes back, right? It
brother.
goes
So,
back to
yeah,
I.
uh-huh, yep. So they're parenting, out of that fear, like I'm trying to prevent something. Um, or another common is just feeling like I we went out in public and they lost it and I didn't know what to do and I felt so embarrassed because all of the eyeballs were on me. And that's
Mm,
when they quickly will go into either one of two camps. They'll either go into strong arming them, like if you don't get up right now, you won't have TV when we get home, or if you don't
right.
get home right now, like you're not going to get that toy. Or they go the opposite way and like, if you get up right now, then I'll get you that thing. Like they go into like that appeasement mode.
Bribing.
Yeah, the bribing man. Oof. And I'll tell you, it works, right? It works, right? I can get a kid up by a threat or a
Sure.
bribe.
Sure.
Easy, easy.
I,
We're looking at short-term wins, and
yeah, I was
I
gonna say
will
the
always
shelf
ask,
life. The shelf
yeah,
life
yeah,
is not gonna carry you through, right? But yeah,
yeah, when we look at that moment, if we can isolate that moment and say, is that what you want to do next time? And then is that what you want to do next time times two? Like, are we
that's
gonna,
right.
is there space to raise the ante? And can we, something that brings my clients confidence and like that they can stand on solid ground, what tool are you using right there? And do you enjoy using that tool?
Right.
Right? If you're using a threat, let's call it out. Let's call it out for what it is.
Right.
And then the question, did that feel good in your body? Did
Mm.
that feel good in your child's body?
No, that's
going
a good point.
through it.
I do like the idea of considering it as a tool. And we're not certainly saying bribing is a good thing, but it's a tool
It
in
is a
that
tool.
moment, right? And so maybe it's
Yeah,
like, in case of emergency, break glass, here's a bribe kind of thing, because
exactly.
in that
Exactly.
instance. But I think then, and where your work would come in is really about arming parents with as many different tools
Tools. Yes.
at their disposal,
Yes.
as
Right.
opposed to
Because
just
there's
having that
sometimes
one go-to.
exactly that one go-to. Just like you said, have there been times that I'll say have bribed my husband? Sure have. Sure have. Why? Because it's I have low bandwidth, low energy. There's like a little tick for tack. I say husband just because it's an easy distanced relationship. But the caveat there is my husband and I are on the same power dynamics, like we were talking about earlier. Like,
Mhm.
has there been times? Yeah, sure. I'll sweeten a deal, um, to get him to do either one of my chores or to get him to do something for me. Yeah, sure. I'll sweeten the deal on something. However, I know, like you said, I know how to do it not with it. Like I have it, I know how to navigate the connection point from a whole different array of tools. And I know that if I'm using that, that's like you said, the shelf life, the low quality, that is a low quality tier. And sometimes I feel low quality. Sometimes I'm feeling low energy. I don't have the bandwidth, like I don't want to sit here for 20 minutes going about this, like I literally, we have to be at the doctor because I can't, um, you know, pay another late fee, that kind of thing, where I
Right.
will, give in to get there, knowing, hey, poof, okay, I got to go back here and I got to do some real work. So
Hmm.
either I need to adjust my energy, I need to adjust our timing. There's something that needs work that little bribe got me a pass.
Yeah, yeah. But even in what you described, there's an aspect of self awareness, and I think that's when we talk
Yes.
about sort of parenting, being aware not only of your actions. So when we talked about earlier, like why did you say that? The mother gave you that
Yes.
piece that took her back to her
Yes.
own childhood.
Yes.
That self awareness piece, I think, is a starting point, because oftentimes, the challenges lie in the frustrations that the parents have. So the
Mm.
question is, where is this frustration coming from?
Yeah. Gosh, man, isn't that a deep question? Right? We wanted to be them. Well, if
Right.
they just
Yeah.
listened to
They're
me,
the
I wouldn't have
problem.
to
They're not listening.
yell.
They're not doing what I want to do. The problem is a child. Is it?
Yeah, is it? I can't even tell you how many people they feel rage at me. They feel rage. Even just with that invitation to say, "Hey, here's a mirror right here," and the rage that they have inside will come out.
Sure. I think and look, and parenting is one of those jobs where you learn on the job, right?
Hmm.
You don't get a manual advance where you can prepare for it.
Yeah.
It's you
Hmm.
start on that journey, you jump on the ride, and you go, and
Yeah.
it's a learning as you go. And I even for myself, the natural default is what I saw as a child and what I thought parenting
Yeah.
is or was, and um there are times where I'm challenging my own belief system because I'm
Yes.
now doing something I never ever, I didn't do for myself, or I didn't think it was done, and I'm like, oh, this is different. And so I think when you can be accepting of that, and it's okay, and maybe give yourself some grace, because sometimes you're like, no, this is the wrong thing. I'm being a bad parent because, and that's not at all. Is that's your parenting in the moment.
Yeah. I think that uh default settings, right? Going back to those default settings. And again, in
Hmm.
those moments, right? Those moments are that's what keeps you tapped into the game so that you're not, become apathetic to it,
Hmm.
right? So it's those little moments of stress. Stress is good. Stress, we can even break down stresses through, there's categorized into three different stresses. There's, healthy stress, good stress. That's the stress that you're feeling. You're like, oh wait, they brought me something I don't know about. Like my whole body needs to be like tuned in here, right? That's the stress that like gets you ready. That's like you're anticipating it. You're like, bloop, okay, this is a big meaningful moment. They brought me something, and like
Yeah.
I got to be on. right? That's one stress. Then episodic stress that's happening over the course of a length of time. So a move, a divorce, a new child, a change of grade. That's stress that creates a little bit more, like needs a little bit more support, but there's kind of a start to what was the stress, and technically there ought to be an end, right? So there should be like a transitional period, maybe somewhere between like a few days to maybe even a couple months to maybe even longer, but there's like a general like timeline to where things will start to go back to being acclimated. And again, that stress is different than the healthy stress, the good stress that gets you engaged. It's a little bit longer. But then there's the third type of stress, and that's where it becomes very that's where I call it code red. And code
Okay.
red stress, that's toxic stress.
Hmm.
That is toxic stress that doesn't have a start date, doesn't have an end date, and that is just stress that is just all the time. That is someone, a child who is um, just having, man, I can see them and I'm having a hard time putting it to words. That's a child who once loved going to school and now is not, now has
Mm.
become totally detached. That is two siblings who you say, oh my gosh, when they were growing up, they used to be the best friends, but something happened.
Right.
And it's like we don't quite know when it started, but we just know that we're in it, and we don't even see an end date.
Mm.
And that stress is stress that builds up in our body, right? So like knowing like where are we in our
Yep.
stresses in this
Yeah. What is
situation?
it? Yeah.
Is our is
Identify
our
what it is first.
yeah, is our
Yeah.
stress matching what is being asked of us? So are we able to say like, hey, I can make these decisions in the moment because it doesn't feel like I'm not taking it to bed with me. I'm not taking it into work with me. Um, or oh, okay, yep, I'm going through this moment here. I got it. I can bring in the supports to help us go through this transition. Or is this like, yeah, actually I'm drowning and they're drowning and I don't really know. And is our support network matching of that stress response
Gotcha.
so that we can navigate through, like you said, like navigate in the moment decision so I can stay tapped in and attuned to what the job is asking me to do.
Mm. Mm.
So I think for some here, like there's no manual and they feel like, okay, carte blanche, like I can do whatever it is that I want because there's no right or no wrong.
Right.
And then for others, they're like, they can hear that phrase and feel totally like lost at sea, being like, oh my gosh, there's none, there's too many. And like they feel like poof, instantly overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So getting them
Yeah.
back in and tethered to those supports to get in, because there's stages of development, there's stages of relationship, there's like you said, there's ingredients that make that recipe.
Yes.
And we slow down to learn what they are and start to learn how to um, build that solid foundation that will grow.
See, I'm going back to the relationship piece again, like relationship
Mhm.
and how if you think about the key elements involved in establishing and building a relationship, um, it just makes sense. Sorry, Megan, I'm going
Yeah.
back to this because it just makes
Yeah.
so much sense. And I think,
Yeah.
and it really is a mind for me. It really is a mindset shift. Um, I found that, and then as your kids get older and you start to have conversations and
Mhm.
dialogue, and there's a level of understanding, and I'm not tethered to the emotions. It's just a
Mhm.
dialogue.
Mhm.
It does evolve and grow and become something
Mhm.
different.
Yeah. Right. And I would say what you're describing is a is a consequence of intentionally, unintentionally investing in that relationship.
Hmm.
Because for some, that conversation that you're describing is not a guarantee.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's something that my children are older, and
Hmm.
we engage in dialogues,
Hmm.
and when I think back to just sort of we've got memorable moments with our children. Some of them are just us sitting down shooting the breeze about whatever, and hearing their perspectives, or making fun of their father. Like, I mean, it's usually one of those two things. Oftentimes making fun of the father is what comes up most, but the point is around it's the relationship is evolving. What I've learned is that's not the norm. There are some real serious challenges out there. Behavioral issues, and in some instances there's some diagnosed issues that parents have to also, which is another element altogether that you really have to strategize for. And so there's some parents who are out there struggling for sure.
Yeah, the key elements that I like to think about. Well, first I'm going to give you four. What one of my mentors, Dan Siegel, he is in attachment studies.
Okay.
Just to quote him, he talks about.
Do you want to just maybe define attachment studies for people who are listening to understand?
Yeah, of course. Attachment theory is a study in psychology. It's different. There's a popular parenting book that's labeled attachment parenting, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about attachment theory. It's a body of psychology, and it looks at the quality of the bond between two people. And there's two areas of study. There's the parent-child, which is where these attachment bonds are first formed. And then there's adult attachments, which is what you bring in from your parent-child relationship into your future romantic relationships. So it's kind of like the thread. They're two different bodies of works under the umbrella, both called attachment theories, but they're looking and studying two different things. So I like to hone in on, of course, the parent-child relationship. But what that's looking at is the quality of the bond between the parent and their child. And my mentor, Dan Siegel, he defines it under what's called the 4 S's. And so he's looking at the quality of the child's sense of safety, physical safety, but emotional safety. And he defines it as, are you someone where the child does not feel terror from? And that's a big question.
That's a big one.
Does the child,
because fear is oftentimes used as a parenting tool, right? Like go in that toolbox we talked about, right?
Yes.
Fear is one of the methods.
Right. And so, so now we can impact if the child doesn't have a sense of safety to you, right? Now it can become confusing. So it can be confusing because innately you're their protector, right? So they have to believe that you're there to keep them safe, but now their body is telling them that they're not safe. So that's a mixed message. So we're looking at the quality of safety and how can we change how we show up to help create the internal sense of safety for the child. Like, like it's a different way to think about things, right? We're decentering the adult and centering the child. So the second is, the first is safety. The second is seen. And being seen by someone means that person, the adult, has an internal picture of what that internal state of mind is for the other person. That way I can communicate and express ways that I get you. So you have the experience of feeling felt by me. So we are on the same page, right? And we do that, like you said, you're nodding right now. That means like, okay, we're on the same track. Like in this conversation with you, I am feeling seen by you. By the way that you're mirroring back what I'm saying, the questions you're asking, right? We're not on two different pages.
Right.
We're on the same page.
Yep.
So that's how can we show up to do that for a child? So when they're saying the things that they like or that they don't like, can we communicate, hey, I see you, I get you, which is not necessarily I agree with you.
No.
Or I would do the same thing as you, right? It's about getting on the same page with them. So are we showing up in ways that helps the child feel seen? So safety, seen. The third is soothing. In their times of distress and overwhelm and that stress, are we able to help soothe them back from that stress? It doesn't mean fix and rescue. It doesn't mean give them what they want. It means help soothe that stress by regulating ourselves and helping to regulate them as well. And regulation is that emotionally, like if they're doing something that's making me mad, am I able to get myself back online, get myself calmed down so that then I can help them calm down. And we can do that, right? Each child has different things that soothe them. Some have a soothing lovey. Some want a hug. Some don't want a hug. Some
Right.
want you to call it out. Some don't want to be looked at, right? And learning what are the ways that create the environment of soothing so that the child goes from a state of distress and overwhelm back down to a state of calm.
Gotcha.
And the fourth is security. And that security is, do they feel stable? Are things predictable?
Hmm.
Is there consistency in the relationship or in the interactions, right? And so if we look at safety, seen, soothing, and security, now we can say, oh, okay, now we're starting to create that safe base
Hmm.
in which that bond can start to develop so that they can go out and explore the world, make mistakes, have upsets, and bring those upsets to us. We can help create the sense of safety, being seen, soothed, and security so that then they do what? They go back out. And you see this at the playground if you think back to like when your kids were little, right? They're out playing on the playground. They fall, they skin their knee, they come over to you and you connect to them. You're like, oh yeah, buddy, you were falling. You scraped your knee. That hurts. I
Right.
can get you a band-aid and give you a kiss, a hug. Okay,
Yep.
do you want to go try again? You get them back out there, right? So now they're starting to say, hey, that person, yeah, I was. I fell and cried and I was able to go over and bring my upset to them. It didn't overwhelm them. And then they could do it. So that's an example of that safe base so that they can come back and launch. So imagine you as the child falling and scraping your knee and bringing it over to your adult who might be overwhelmed of their own, right? And
Sure.
they're like, oh my gosh, I can't even. Why did you go up there? I told you not to go up
Right.
there. I knew you were going to fall. See, this is what happens.
You don't
That,
listen. Yeah.
yeah, you
Yeah.
don't
Yeah. Yeah.
listen.
Yeah.
Like, this is
Yeah.
what I'm trying to tell you. And like that internal, if we start to say, okay, does the child feel safe? Probably not. The child is probably like, oh yeah, I shouldn't have done that. Oh yeah, I did this. I caused this.
Right.
You know, um,
Definitely no soothing.
no soothing, right? The child is like, oh, I'll give you something to cry about. Like this is just a little scrape. Now they're like, okay, like trying to like suck it
Mm.
in, and they start to suppress it, stuff it down. I was this seen. No, that child does not feel seen. Like they wanted to climb, they wanted to do that, they wanted to explore. That's what the playground is for. And the
I would even say they're
security.
being seen for the wrong thing, like in that
Oh
moment.
yeah, they're being seen for their mistake, right?
Hmm.
They're yeah, the humiliation. They're maybe feeling a little bit of humiliation,
Yeah.
um, or shame even. Um, Yeah, and the sense of security is like, okay, I mean, if a child is getting that predictably, then there can be a little bit of security in there, right, where the child's like, no, don't tell them. They're just gonna blame you.
Right.
Um, but the security, it gets the parent off off from where they want to go. Like, I don't think any parent in that moment, if I'm like, hey, excuse me, does that feel good? No, like no one's gonna be like, yeah, that felt great. No, they're gonna be like, no, but I don't know how else to get him to stop climbing on things and scraping his knees.
Right.
And in those moments, it's like, poof, you can feel it. You can feel it, the difference.
Yeah. No. No. I think that those four S's really help. They
Mm-hmm.
provide a really good picture overall. And
Mm-hmm.
again, what makes parenting so tough. I'll acknowledge, like, there's so much going on. It's not just about what you do with the child. It's how you provide for the child, the
Mm-hmm.
shelter, the home,
Mm-hmm.
finances, the
Oh my
marriage, and
gosh,
there's so much
yes.
around that
Yes.
where our attentions can be focused. And so again, it could be like, I don't want to do this right now. The child isn't
Yeah.
being seen. There's like
Yeah.
there's always going to be a ripple effect of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
um and it's I think that's why there's no such thing as a perfect parent, because you're just not
Yeah.
going to hit it out of the park every single time, right? It's
Oh my
just not
gosh,
possible,
absolutely.
right?
And I would say not only is it not possible, but it's also not functional. It doesn't even serve purpose in a relationship to value perfection.
Yeah.
And I'm going to show you a reason why. So when we think about those four S's, you're going to have moments where you're on target and you're like, yeah, I did it. Like I
Yeah.
showed up, I've been practicing. I know not to tell them not to cry or to, big kids don't cry. Like I know to be like, yeah, it's okay to cry. You got hurt. getting hurt hurts. Like I've been practicing that, like I did it, right? And then there's going to be times, like you said, that like you're not on your game. Your mind is somewhere else on other, maybe a work stress, or maybe your own parents are pulling you into another brain space. Like we just moved my father-in-law. That's what he's been pulling us out a lot into assisted living. So that's been a big stressor, meaning pulling us out of our intentional moments. So maybe there's another life stress happening that's pulling you out, and your child comes and you don't show up, right? So we call those ruptures. And ruptures in relationships are moments where that connection is broken. So the child's not feeling seen, you're not feeling seen, you're overwhelmed, you're just stuck in that rupture. And it's almost like a pothole in the road, right? Some people just learn to go around the pothole, like just ignore the pothole and we'll just find another way around it. The pothole persists, maybe even gets worse, right? That rupture doesn't come back, or it doesn't get addressed, and then it can become even bigger, right? Or we can do what's more beneficial to the relationship for everyone. We go back and we repair the rupture. We go
Right.
back and say, oh, you know what? You came over and I was not my best. My mind was here and I'm sorry. And I wasn't
Gotcha.
there. And that probably didn't feel good to you. And we can come back and we can do repair work with ourselves,
Hmm.
and then repair work with the child to repair that relationship, like fixing that pothole. So that we're not having to like avoid it or go around it. We can just say, hey, you know what? We can come back and we can put a patch on it.
Yeah.
We can go back and repair, so then it's easy, and we can reestablish that security. And that is
Hmm.
so much more impactful, because they're going to go out in their imperfect selves, in their imperfect friendships, and make a lot of ruptures. A lot of
Yes.
ruptures.
Yes.
And then you're going to be teaching them,
Teach
right,
them.
through
Yeah.
experience what to
Yeah.
do with it. You don't have to quit. You don't have to give up. You don't have to like avoid. You have to go back and acknowledge, take accountability, and then do the recovery and repair work together to get back. And that, again, gives us that internal sense of safety to be like, oh, okay, I'm not a bad person for making a
Right.
mistake. I can just go ask for help. I can repair this. I can repair this. This is something that is a solvable problem, and I can slow down and solve it.
I
And
love that.
that is,
No, and I do love like children being taught that and using that in their own relationships. I think that's beautiful.
Oh my gosh, I wish this was a lesson that I am still learning as an adult, that was was first modeled to me by adults when I was an adult. And to think
Hmm.
about, if I had that model as a child, like then all of those mistakes, all those test grades, I share with my clients, in second grade, I was really struggling in spelling. And I remember my dad um, told me that my spelling was atrocious.
Okay.
He said, "Oh my gosh, man, your spelling is so atrocious." And you know what I learned to do? Cheat. I learned to write the words little tiny on my desk, and I learned to get that I learned how to get an A on the spelling test, right? I solved it in a kid way. I learned how to cheat to get it. And when I go back, I'm like, oh my gosh, right? That makes sense why you would do that, kid. Like, because
Mm,
you're trying to get this love from your
yes.
father. You're trying to get something, and you're like, okay, how do I do it? If I'm just myself, I'm being called atrocious, which as a second grader, like no second grader should know what the word atrocious means.
Right. 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 No, that's it's
So,
interesting how we
so
learn our lessons too.
yeah, right. To learn to do that, to slow down and be like, oh wait, what if in that moment he would have given me a tool there to like help ask for help, help,
Sure.
solve that,
Yep.
so that then I could have been confident in the growth, and that it was okay to not be a great speller. It was
Right.
okay to have
Right.
had this, to make this mistake and slow down.
I think,
But
well, it's funny because I think to do that, like from a parenting perspective, you've got to slow down. You've got
mhm,
to you got to need some empathy to
yes.
right to be able to uh, um, not label, right? Like
Yes.
there's some judgments there, like you're atrocious, some
Oh my
judgments
gosh.
applied to that. There's a whole bunch
Yes.
of things that, but to do that, you've just got to slow down and take your emotions out of the situation, right? Because I think
Yes.
oftentimes the things that come out of parents' mouths is the emotions first, right? Like how I'm
Yes.
feeling. So
Yes.
it's a tough one. I'd love to ask about the CLEAR method. It's something that you use
Mm.
to help parents. I wonder if you could. And CLEAR is an
Yes.
acronym, CLEAR.
Yes. It is. It is. It's as we talked about the step to step move through these struggles, and instead of going into like those judgment cycles, the hurtful cycles, what's a new cycle that we can start to go into, and we can start to learn and walk through the clear method. And the clear method is that step-by-step approach that you make unique to your family, but we're going to hit those targets. And if those targets are being hit, typically they are hit in this order. And the first step of the process is connection, C, connection, right? That's where we start with. Do
Yep.
they feel connected to? Does the child feel seen, heard, and understood by me? And what can
Right.
I do to change my reaction, my first response, so that the child feels seen, heard, and understood. Then,
Hmm.
after they're understood, we're connected with each other. Then we can step into the next stone. And the next stone is L, which is limits. And the limits are boundaries,
Mm,
routines, agreements, um, protocols, processes. What is the line? What is our target that we're headed towards? And we can only really establish that after we are on the same page. Now we're saying, okay, same page. Now here's the limit. And after the limit has been drawn or agreed to and set, then we're going to be stepping into the E, which is empowerment. And that's choice. That's
mm,
decision making. That's slowing down and teaching them their options and how they're going to move forward um, into the A, which is accountability. And accountability is what happens after you make a choice. It's the
right.
consequence of that action. And then the R, CLEAR, is recovery, repair, reconnection, reiteration, all these really juicy R words that help us kind of come back into reconnection that starts the cycle again.
Mm. And what's interesting as you were talking about the clear method, you can start kind of anywhere. It doesn't have to be you have to be at the sea because maybe you
No.
already connected. Maybe you already did that job to
Yes.
establish that connection. Maybe
Yes.
you already got the limits in
So now
place.
we need to,
You know,
yes.
right? So I
Yeah.
think it's
Uh-huh.
really important that that people understand that you could be anywhere in
Yes.
that process, if you will.
Yes, it's about slowing down and saying, where am I in this
Yep.
process?
Yep.
And then, okay, what's the next step? But we were raised with the L and the A. We were just raised with limits and accountability. Let me tell you what to do and let me hold you accountable to doing it, right?
No way you
And
get
so
empowered. You're not getting
yeah,
empowered.
no, I didn't even know what empowered meant, right? What is that word? All I know is I make some bad choices. I don't even know what those are, but I just know
Right.
that I make them, right? So slowing down and really doing that. But the majority of the parents that I work with and they come to me, they're starting at actually are. They're starting at that repair,
Sure.
the
Sure.
recovery, that reconnection, and getting it back into the flow of slowing down. And really, with my clients is if you think about one of the moments that you've had with your child. I know that we've been talking a lot about like I call them shadow moments, those shadowy moments. Maybe not our proudest moments, but if you write it down like you're a news story and you pull out markers and I were to say, okay, circle where the connection was, circle where your child felt seen, heard, understood. We can circle it. Then I'll say, okay, what's the limit? What is the line in the sand? Let's circle that. Where was the choice? Let's circle that. And then where's the A? What was the follow through? What was the consequence? Let's circle that. And then what's the recovery and the repair being made? And they can circle that. If they have all five steps, then we're just going to work through that process. But typically, one of those steps are missing. One of
Gotcha.
those things, it becomes very clear, like, oh, I've just skipped. I'll say recovery is the most forgotten about step, and connection is the most skipped over step.
Mm.
So, like you said, we can start anywhere in that process. Once we know, okay, here's where we're at.
Yep.
What's the step forward, and then to go through it and to kind of become that self-reflective. It becomes that mirror and say, okay, what step did I skip?
Gotcha.
And then
Gotcha.
then then it's I'm not telling you screen time limits. I'm not telling you bedtime limits. I'm not telling you how to talk to
No.
your child.
No.
I'm teaching you the method to say, okay, what are the tools
Yep.
that help kind of create this.
And the relationship will determine all those details.
Yes.
You don't need to. The relationship itself
No.
will
Yes,
make that happen.
exactly.
Right? So
Exactly.
makes total sense. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Man, this has been fabulous. I really appreciate the insights that you've offered. Again, for me, that whole
Thank you.
relationship thing is gonna resonate with me big time. Made me think back to myself. Did I do a good enough job that, and where can I, and then where does the opportunity exist to continue to reconnect, if you will? And so I think that's
Yes.
I think the piece around this where I want parents listening to really to bear in mind is that it's never too late, and there's
Never.
always opportunities, right? So
Always.
awesome.
Yeah, that's a
For
beautiful
listeners that
takeaway.
want to
Thank you
learn
so much.
Yeah, I know. I was gonna say, for listeners that want to learn more about your work and how to connect with you or maybe possibly work with you, where could we send them?
You can find me at my website, bekindcoaching.com.
Okay. And we'll make sure that the contact details are on the show notes below. That's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you
Man,
so much.
thank you for this. This has been a great chat, delightful, enjoyable, and I appreciate you for being a guest on the Audacious Living Podcast.
Thank you so much.
Back, we are here on the podcast, and during our conversation with MegAnne, she shared profound insights about the importance of viewing parenting through the lens of a relationship. One of the key points she made is that traditional power dynamics often lead to disconnection. By shifting our approach to emphasize connection, limits, empowerment, accountability, recovery, essentially the CLEAR method, parents can cultivate a nurturing environment that allows their children to thrive. What I personally loved about the interview with MegAnne was her emphasis on self-reflection and the courage it takes to repair ruptures in the parent-child relationship. She highlighted that it's never too late to rebuild connections, and every interaction offers an opportunity for growth. The perspective resonates deeply with me as it reminds us that parenting is a journey of continuous learning for both parents and children. If you're interested in learning more about MegAnne or want to reach out to her for support, you can find her on bekindcoaching.com. All contact details and additional resources will be included in the show notes below, so be sure to check them out. MegAnne is also offering a special workshop for listeners of the Audacious Living Podcast, and so please make sure you visit her website for more details on how you can participate and further enrich your parenting journey. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Audacious Living Podcast. Your support means the world to us here. And if you've enjoyed today's episode and took something from the conversation, please like, follow, subscribe, or share this episode with your family and friends if you haven't already done so. Together, we can continue to build a community of audacious individuals committed to living their best lives. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.
You've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by Audley Stephenson. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be audacious.